Again, welcome to the Silicon Valley Data Interest Group. Tonight I'm going to tell you all about data to PDF publishing using DITA-FMx and FMxAuto. FMxAuto is a new tool that just about to release very soon. My name is Scott Prentice, president of Leximation. I do lots of FrameMaker plugins, data development, custom online help systems, and a number of other strange things. So before I get into this, I just need to explain there's three tools here that interact, and the FMxAuto tool is not is just a small piece of it, but that's what I'm calling the automation. So the three tools are DITA-FMx, which in general generates a PDF-ready FrameMaker book and files from a DITA map. It does a lot more than that, but basically that's its purpose as far as publishing goes. FMxAuto is an add-on to DITA-FMx that essentially unlocks the automation features in DITA-FMx. I'm going to go into more detail on all of these. And then there's a tool called AutoFM, which is sort of a scripting tool that tells DITA-FMx and FrameMaker which files to work with. So it tells it which files to open, process, and print. And that works in conjunction with FMxAuto. So DITA-FMx, if you're not familiar with it, is a plugin for Frame that provides enhanced data authoring and publishing features. Since this presentation focuses on publishing, I'm not going to talk about all the authoring features it provides, just publishing. So DITA-FMx supports FrameMaker versions 7.2, 8, 9, and 10. It supports DITA 1.1, and DITA 1.2 support will be available soon. I know at least one person visiting here is interested in that. DITA-FMx essentially creates the FrameMaker book and components from a DITA map, and then the default version, you have to save the PDF from that book manually. And what we're talking about here is some automated publishing that will take care of that manual step. So the DITA-FMx publishing process starts with a book build process that creates FrameMaker component files from top-level topic refs in a map. So if you're working with a book map, this would essentially be giving you a chapter frame file for every chapter or appendix element in your book map. If you have any book list elements in your map, those will get generated as FrameMaker generated lists. If there's each one of the components that's created, the FrameMaker components, is given possibly a different template and pagination and numbering properties. That's all set up ahead of time, and so those are all applied based on the map element type. And you can also apply, have metadata from the map that's applied to each of those components, so that if you set properties in a map, that can get passed on as it should. Then there's also a process for applying custom pagination and formatting, and I'm going to show you a couple of pieces that will work with that. But during the book build process, your custom pagination can be applied, and this is an area that I think really is going to be popular once people see what it can do. So then there's FMxAuto, and as I said, this is an add-on for DITA-FMx that essentially enables an API that exists within DITA-FMx FMx that normally isn't exposed. And so when this is installed, you're able to run these API functions in DITA-FMx using FDK clients, that's FrameMaker Developer Kit. Basically, those are plugins, or from FrameScript or ExtendScript if you're using Frame 10. There's an FDK client called AutoFM that's provided with FMxAuto, and that's a tool for driving the publishing process through an XML based scripting model. FMxAuto will be available in 3 versions. There's a server version, a desktop unlimited, and a desktop 250. And basically the first 2 are pretty self-explanatory, and desktop 250 is sort of a lightweight version that will let you create books of less than 250 pages. So if you don't create books bigger than that, then that's all you'd need. The 2 desktop versions run on desktop Frame. The server version runs with Frame Server. Then there's AutoFM, and that's this plugin that's included with FMxAuto. And this is a very simple XML scripting model that basically the AutoFM file lists the file to open, then it tells DITA-FMx what operations to perform on that file. In this case, you'd be opening a DITA map, and it would be telling DITA-FMx to run the map to book process. You could actually use this to do all kinds of automation in FrameMaker, so it's not tied to DITA-FMx, but it's a useful tool that I developed many years ago for automating frame processing. This XML file is passed to FrameMaker as a command line parameter. So what that means is any scripting environment that can call an executable will be able to run this. And I'll show you how it works just through a batch file, but you'd be able to run it from pretty much any server publishing process, or from Ant. You could hook it up to the Open Toolkit, number of different things. So then FrameMaker would open this XML file on startup and then perform the instructions in that file. For example, a simple process, and this is kind of the common step, would be first open the map, then tell DITA-FMx to generate the book from the map, save that book to a PDF, then exit frame. Pretty standard. See a question from Arnis. Does FMxAuto start to tread on FM server's turf? Well, yeah. As far as I can tell, Frame Server at this point can't actually create a real book PDF because you can't interrupt that process to insert a table of contents and index and different things. So at this point, it's difficult to use it with DITA files. But yeah, definitely, I think it'll just be an augmentation to Frame Server. So now we'll start the demo. I'm going to show you a couple of different things with DITA-FMx, some basic book build features, then some somewhat enhanced features, and then I'll show you this AutoFM file, and then we'll show you an automated build. As with automated things, it's not very exciting. It just kind of happens. A minute or two later, you get a PDF. So most of the demo will be focusing on looking at the book build features in DITA-FMx, how you set things up, and that sort of thing. And so let's get over there. So let's see. So I'm just going to launch Frame. And feel free to ask any questions if you have them. The files that I'm working with are some of the DITA-FMx documentation. It just kind of stripped down a little bit to make the build go a little faster. This is just the documentation that's readily available. All right, still loading here. All right, so I'm sure you're familiar with Frame. Some of you may not. One of the things that I'm seeing that FMxAuto along with DITA-FMx could be helping people who aren't using Frame for authoring and they just want a better and more efficient way to publish PDFs than XSLFO or other current processes that are available for publishing PDFs from DITA. So I'm hopeful that may happen. So this is the DITA-FMx menu. Lots of authoring commands here. Let me just open up a map. Here's the trimmed down map that I'll be working with. Let's get rid of this. All right. I'll pull this down for now. I'd like to have the console window available when I'm building so I can see what's going on. But so this is just a very basic book map. Let me bring the let's see. So we've got some metadata. Front matter consisting of a TOC could have other elements in the book list element, but right now we've just got a table of contents. Some chapters. This is a mix. There's some chapters that are just nested topic refs, and others. This chapter here is actually a reference to another map. So we've got sort of a mix. We've got a couple of appendixes, back matter that consists of an index, and a very small relationship table. So just to show that all the standard things are in here, there's actually a relationship table in the submap for the command map here. So that's just what we've got for a map. And then as far as building a book from this map, these are the standard options that are available in DITA-FMx, and you can add related links from a relationship table. You can do this flattened conrefs, which is actually useful if you've got nested references within conrefs so that they become live links in the PDF. You can have variables. You can use FrameMaker variables and have them rebuilt after they come through into the book. You can have your cross-references and links converted into hyperlinks or enabled as hyperlinks. If you have index terms in your prologue, And if you've built things with standard frame data, you'll know that when you collapse the prologue, your index terms are hidden as well, and so they don't show up in the index. So this command will move those index terms into the title for the book build, and so that they become available. You can apply a DITA-val as conditions to do some filtering. You can have the figure title move to the end of the figure element. This is something that people often like their figure titles below the figure, whereas the DITA specification has the titles above them. You can have the table title moved into the table. In the DITA structure, the table title is in a location that doesn't work so well for frame titles if you want the continuation, the table continuation variable to show up. So this is useful for that. You can have numbering and pagination assigned so that when you generate your book, it's all done. You've got all the numbering and pagination is properly set up. You can have your list files, your book lists actually created as generated files in frame, TOC and index. You can have templates applied. You could have this map in particular has chapters and appendixes, and so I have a different template for each of those, and it will apply the right template in each case. You can run this custom script, which is what I was referring to as a custom processing, a publishing process, so that if you need some additional work done, pagination work, you can write an extend script or frame script or plugin that does that. And I've got a couple of scripts that I'll show you what they do, and that helps keep formatting out of your DITA files, basically, and then also allows you to do more. Then you can hide the conditionalized content, which is likely what you want to do. You want your prologue hidden and your comments hidden, and then update the book. So that's sort of the standard settings. I'm not going to set them in there. Actually, I'm going to answer a question. Let me check something. Yep. Sarah. Now got frame script, extend script, FTK, and your tools, and more that I'm forgetting. What's the best use case for this versus others? The best use case for FMxAuto, basically, if that's FMxAuto is needed to unlock scripting for DITA-FMx, and so you can if you want to use DITA-FMx to build your books, you need to have FMxAuto. You layer frame script and extend script and FTK on top of that. So hopefully that answers your question. Let me know if not. Okay. All right. So so those were the standard book build options. I'm just going to go in. The typical way of building a book from a map is to save that map. When you start the process, it asks for the location of the new book. And so I put them in a folder called book. Makes sense? If I'm doing lots of testing with different versions, I might have the frame version. Most people don't do that, but I do. So and in that book output folder is this file called DITA-FMx book build ini. And this is sort of the instructions for building the book, and it mirrors what we saw in the user interface. The user interface sets some default settings, and this ini file allows you to have separate settings for each project. So you might have you know, a bunch of different books, and you don't want to have to keep changing the default settings each time. So what you do is you store those settings in this ini file. And so I'm just going to kind of quickly go through what's in here in general. One of the important things is this book templates dir which in this case points to a component templates folder. And that's this folder here. And so in this folder are the 4 templates that I'm using. 2 of them start with TPL tilde. These are for the appendix and chapter components, and it matches, it pairs up directly with the chapter and appendix elements in the map. And then we have these GEN TPL tilde files for index list and TOC. And those are just your standard frame generated list templates. And so this tells it where to find these templates. And you could have them all in a common location, or you can have it, in this case, in a relative path so that there's a component templates for each project. And it depends on how you set up your files, but you may have different templates for different projects. There's some of these other settings. If you wanted to import attributes as variables, these are this is essentially map metadata. You can have those import as variables into the book. You can enable that. You can import map metadata as conditions. So as FrameMaker conditions, you could tag things in your templates with a condition, and then based on map metadata, those conditions could be turned on or off. And I'm not going to show an example of that. It's a little complicated to set up, but it's very powerful, and lets you. A lot of times people will use that to change settings that might say confidential or pre-release or whatever, and so you can just change that in the map, and it's automatically flipped back and forth in the output files. You can also have some pre- and post-build scripts, and these are actually just like batch files or other operating system level utilities that might copy files around, could move things around based on a different project. So that's an option. This condition map is where you control the settings for this import attributes as conditions. So the big part in this ini file is setting the pagination and numbering for each component. And in this book that I'm going to create, I'll have a component that's a title page, and if we go back to the map, we see there's no title page here. It starts off with a TOC, then chapter 1, chapter 2. But in my ini file here, and it's down near the bottom, I have an include files section, and this lets me include non-DITA files in the output. So in this case, I'm going to include a title page at position 1. So that'll be the first thing in the file, and it's actually just going to grab this unstructured frame file and use it as my title page. And so I give it a name, title page here, and it pulls in the file. So in this ini file, there are pairs of sections, numbering first. Let's go here, numbering first and numbering default. As you might expect, numbering first is the numbering for the first instance of this map element. Numbering default is the numbering for all remaining instances of that in the book. So for the title page, there's just one, so we have a numbering first. It sets the paging to restart at 1 using lowercase Roman. Then we have a table of contents, a TOC, that tells the paging to continue in lowercase Roman. Then when you get to the first chapter, it restarts the chapter property. It sets that to 1 numeric. It restarts the page property, sets that to 1 in numeric. So basically, this is everything that you would normally do to a book, to a frame book, to set all the pagination and numbering. So So you set this all up ahead of time. So I've got chapter, appendix. I have a topic ref in here, but it's not used for this book. My appendix, the chapter number format is switched over to uppercase alpha. And you'll see that. And then we have an index that just continues. Then there's a couple sections for generated files. This tells it how to set up the generated files. So for the table of contents, it's a component type of TOC. It's got 4 tags, title.0, title-appendix.0, and so on. This is telling it what paragraph tags to include in the TOC. And the same with the index. It's a component type of index standard, and it's pulling in one type of marker, which is an index marker. So this, if you're familiar with setting up books in frame, this is all fairly much, what you would do in the frame files. Let me switch this back through. I'll explain why that's done later. But so then this book build override section, this mirrors the settings in the user interface that I showed you. And so this is saying, yes, add related links, make them type 1, which is a regular link as opposed to a FrameMaker link. Flatten the conrefs, rebuild variables, convert xrefs to hyperlinks, and so on. So this is applying a DITA-val called DITA-val-print. It's moving the figure titles, it's moving table titles. It's applying a number of settings to that book build process. So at this point, what I'm going to do is go back over here to the map, and I'm going to make a couple of changes just so we see how the map metadata gets passed through. I'm going to change this version. We'll change that to 15. And let's see. No, that's good enough. We'll just do that. All right. So I changed the version in here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to run a book build and run generate book from map. Tell it to put it in this folder. I'm going to call it demo.book. And you can see that it's building it in the folder with this book build any file. And so that way it sees that. Oh, I don't want to name it that. That would be bad. Demo.book. All right. So we're going to let that go. I'm going to answer another question here. Oops. Oh, Sarah had to run. All right. Franz, regarding title page, is there or will there be a standard way to mark up title page content in DITA 1.2? I don't think that the DITA 1.2 specification includes that. I think it should. It seems kind of crazy that there isn't a title page element in the book map. So no. I mean, you can create one using a topic ref, and in DITA-FMx you can actually assign an output class to that and call it title page, and it would then use a title page template, a component template that you may have provided. So you can do that all in the current setup, but I don't believe that there is an official title page in DITA. I'm hoping maybe at some future point, but I don't think it's in 1.2. All right, so this book build just completed, and you can see we've got a title page here, and you see that the variable updated to 1115. These other values are variables as well, and they're pulled from the map. The date, my copyright, the company. This information is all pulled out of the map and updated in this file. And that's, even though this is an unstructured frame file, it's still getting updated. You could do similar things in the templates of the structured frame files, but it would be in the, like in the header footer section. So we've got the title page. We've got, hang on, move some of this stuff out of the way. We've got a nice looking table of contents. All the numbering is good. Chapter, appendix numbering, index. You know, looks like a table of contents should look. We've got, here's some related links that got pulled in from the map. It all looks good, you know, looks like things should look. We've got the figure title below the figure. I think if we go into this file, you can see that the chapter numbering has changed to, if I go down a little ways, I think it's in here. Oh, yeah, so we have an image here that you'll notice this image is aligned with the text, not with the margin. And this is another feature in the book build any that allows this to stick together instead of it extending over to the margin, which is a common problem. We can open one of the appendixes, and you see that the chapter numbering, lettering is updated. So basically, this file at this point is essentially PDF ready. I mean, you could go through it page by page, and you might find something that you wanted to tweak a little bit. In general, you know, I try and fix the template so that it pages better. A lot of times people want to put in some page breaks or do things that aren't really appropriate in DITA. But I think with enough template work, you can get that pretty nice. So yeah, so we've got all the pieces for the book. And let's see. All right, so let's go back into this file here. So you want to take this a little bit further, and say you've got your notes that you might want an icon out here, or maybe you've got some code samples and you want to do something fancy with those. You want to put them in a table or something. You want to have a border around it or a background color. People are often tempted to actually put that structure in the DITA file. So they'll actually put a table in here and they'll stick the code block inside the table. Or for the notes, they'll put the notes in a table and they'll stick the icons in it, because that's the way you've been working in Frame. That's what you're used to. But one of the points of DITA is to separate the formatting from the content. And while that isn't always possible, I do think it's a good direction to go. So let me close this book. Sure. So this is where these scripting comes in. So I've got two different scripts. Go up here. One is called Auto Insert Icon, and we can look at this ini file which controls how icons are inserted. And what it does is it operates based on an element and attribute type. So we can say we have a note called note default, and that matches all notes where type is set to nothing. And then so down here we see a section called image spec note default, and that tells us that the image file name is going to be a check. The DPI is 300. You set the anchoring position, you set the distance above the baseline, you know, all the standard things that you would set in frame if you were placing an image. But what this is going to do is it's going to insert these images in the generated files. You don't have them in your source. And so we've got different types of notes. We've got one for tip, we've got one for caution, and then I also, in a number of places in my documentation, I've got information that's specific to a version of frame. And so I set other props to FM72, FM80, FM90, and then when I publish through the Open Toolkit, I use DITA-vals to apply a flag to those, which inserts an image. In frame, I'm just using this auto insert icon to insert a little image that's, you know, 7.2 and FM72 in some little purple box. So this is a publishing process that runs during the book build process. And to enable that, I go back into my book build ini and I change run script to 1. And in this case, you'll see I've got two different things. I've got an auto insert icon and I've got structure snippets. And I'll show you what structure snippets is in a minute. But so this is going to run two different custom scripts. And these could be extend scripts, they could be frame script, or they could be frame plugins. So this was what the auto insert icon does, and then there's the snippets, structure snippets, and this is kind of a fun thing. Well, I thought it was fun. I developed structure snippets a number of years ago as a tool for letting authors have a quick way to store and reuse chunks of information from a structured frame file, and it's a really neat little plugin. But then I realized that it could be used as a way to insert additional content as part of the publishing process. So let's say that you want to wrap your code block here in a table. And so I'm just going to do that. I'm going to just make a little sample of this. We'll just insert a simple table, and this will just be a one column, one row, no heading, insert. There's a table. Let's stretch it out there, and let's move the code into it. Get rid of that. Hang on. Sorry. Not using. Okay. Anyway. All right, let's give it a little formatting. Table designer. Let's put a ruling, say thin, and bottom and right, we'll make those thick. We'll give it a little 3D look. Apply that, and then we'll give it some color background. Let's say you really want your code samples to stick out, so we'll give it a nice cyan background. That's beautiful, isn't it? Okay, close that. Okay, that's cool. Huh? Is that just beautiful? Yeah, well, let's say that's what you wanted. So what I do at this point is I've designed the snippet that I want to place into my document. All I need to do is go up here to Structure Snippets, Save Snippet, and we'll call this Code Table, if I can spell. And because this was originally sort of an authoring interactive script or plugin, it had the ability to insert things with keyboard shortcuts, or it was on the context menu. So we'll just add those, save that. All right, so it just saved this into a file. And now what we can do is go up here, and what we need to do is modify what it saved just slightly. So we go to Manage Snippets, Edit File. So you see basically it put this thing into a frame file with just that. And since it's in a frame file, it's just invalid XML, but that doesn't matter. We don't really care. What we want in this case is we want this to wrap the code block when it's inserted. So you type in this code, and just take my word for it. This is how it works. This %:cell:% is the secret code for insert selected contents here. So I save that, close it. Now I can go back here and I can show you that it actually works. Take the code block out, get rid of my simple table. Now, if I'm just authoring, I select the code block, I hit Escape CT. Boom. It just copied in that snippet and wrapped what I had selected. So this is cool from just an interactive perspective, but for publishing, it'll do the same thing. So I'm just going to close this file, not going to save it. So we just set up the auto insert icon and the structure snippets to do two different things. And I'm going to run another book build. And I'm just going to overwrite what we had before. I think there are a couple questions while this is building. June, okay. June, is there anything in the frame file, such as a placeholder, that indicates that an icon has been set in the ini file? Oops, hang on, overwrite. Yep. No, there's nothing in the frame file. It's just there. So when you know, the frame file that's generated from the book build process just has these additional elements in it. It doesn't really reference back to the ini file. I'm not sure if that answers your question. Let me know if that's not doing it. Arnis, what additional benefit would one get going through the Open Toolkit? Well, I assume you mean for building PDFs. One of the things that I'm actually looking into is some of the CMS, systems, in particular TriSoft and XDocs, which are two that DITA-FMx works with. They have standard systems that run Open Toolkit builds. And so what I'm planning on doing is hooking up a connector from the Open Toolkit to this process so that I can leverage those build processes in the CMS. And what it may do is both of those CMSs have special concepts of variables and filtering that is different than exists in DITA. and what it can do is the CMS can write out their files in a certain way and can do a pre-resolution of all references and things, and then it can just feed it into DITA-FMx for final PDF creation. So because those are open toolkit builds, it should work. I don't know how much of a benefit it would be to kind of the average person running the open toolkit on their desktop, other than, you know, maybe you've got certain targets set up in a certain process, and if one of those targets happens to kick off FrameMaker and do a PDF build, you know, maybe that's easier. I'm not sure. Again, let me know if that doesn't do it. Yeah, June, yes, it does. You just need to know what's in the INI file and how it gets there. So, yeah. All right, so this build process finished, and so now we can go and open up our file, see if it's in here. Yep, there's one of our tip icons. Here, let me turn off borders. Yeah, so we get this nice tip icon. There's a nice little note icon. Some more notes. Ooh, there's our beautiful code sample. Yeah, so all these just got added. There's one of my little FrameMaker version flags. This stuff just got added through these scripts, and it's all, you know, the goal. One of the big goals of DITA-FMx is to be able to produce, you know, PDF ready FrameMaker files. And so this, being able to add your own processing gets you further down that road. And especially with Frame 10 and Extend Script, you don't have to be, you know, an FDK developer. You can make your own Extend Scripts. If you're seeing that something isn't quite right, you can just make a little script and have it run and fix that up, or, you know, do whatever is needed. So, yeah, I think that's sort of the basic and extended DITA-FMx builds. Yeah, holler if you have any questions, and I'll just keep plugging along. All right, we'll close that. And I guess we're just going to completely close Frame. Not yet. So now we've got you get the process set up with DITA-FMx. You get your books building properly. You get the book and generated files just right. Then you say, okay, now it's time to automate this. You know, I just want to click a button and get my PDF. So that's where this FMxAuto comes in, and close that guy. So this, I think I have it open. This is an FMxAuto script. Sorry, this is an AutoFM script. Remember, FMxAuto is just the thing that unlocks DITA-FMx API access. So I've provided this tool called AutoFM that provides a scripting environment to drive FrameMaker and other clients, one of them being DITA-FMx. And so this script, it's just sort of an arbitrary XML model. AutoFM, first thing we're going to do is operate on a file. We're going to open some file. The type is XML. Since it's XML, we need a file name and we need an application, a structure application. So the file name is our DITA map. The structure application is the DITA-FMx map 11. So that's going to tell Frame to open that file. So then we've got another node here called action. In this case, it's going to perform an FDK action. It could be frame script or extend script. For an FDK action, you have a client. In this case, it's called DITA-FMx. And you have arguments. And these arguments are passed to DITA-FMx. This is one of the things that the FMxAuto is enabling, is the ability to perform this, this API call. So we're going to run the map to book process on the current file, which is a dot. We could have a file name in there, but since we're just opening a file, we can just say, yeah, use that file. This is the structure application to use to open that file. Basically, this is the application that is set in DITA-FMx in the options dialog for the book application. So whatever book application you're using, you would set that in here. And then we also tell it what the book name is to create. So in this case, it's going to put it in the book FM10 folder and call it demo.book. Then we've got another node, book. Whoa. Fell off. Okay, book. We're going to select a book. We're going to select a book called this. So presumably it got created up here, and so now it exists and we can select it. First thing we want to do is save it, because this process doesn't save the book. It leaves it open but not saved. So we save it. And then we do a save as type PDF. And we save it to this name. So yeah, then after the PDF is saved, we close the book, and then we exit frame. So this script, what's going to happen is this script is going to get passed to FrameMaker when it starts up. When with AutoFM installed, if the first file that is opened is an AutoFM file, it just runs it. It says, oh, I know what this is. I'm going to run this script. And so it goes through and does the instructions, and then it exits itself. So, and here's a batch file that we're going to use to launch Frame. It's very basic. You've got your FrameMaker executable, and you have your path to your AutoFM file. That's it. This, because this is just a batch file, it could also be a Perl script, it could be a Python script, it could be, Ant, it could be anything. You could launch that, and you can also have whatever system you've got running could actually create these scripts. So these scripts could get generated by some database. You could have something queued up that writes out these things in the middle of the night. Or you could just create them manually ahead of time, create a batch file that runs them in sequence and just fires off any number of builds. So it's, it's completely up to you how that works. You can also open those scripts in Frame, and so I'm going to open that script right here. And so this is what it looks like in Frame, and it's just because there's a structure application that formats it nicely and gives it some labels and things. But this is how you would test these scripts. You would create them in Frame, and then you can run them from the menu. You can say AutoFM run, and it runs the current script. And it'll do everything except exit Frame. So if you're running this in an interactive mode, it'll run through everything, but it won't exit Frame. It'll stay open. So that's how you would test the scripts. And yeah, so that's the script. And so I'm going to close frame, and I'm just going to run this batch file, and it's going to run frame, pass this AutoFM file to frame as a command line parameter. That'll kick off the process. Then it'll do that the build process, because it's saving this book into that folder that has the DITA-FM ini file in it, and then we'll end up with a PDF right here in about a minute and a half. So I'll kick this guy off, and let's see, if you have any questions, this is a good time. So let's see, Lauren, can I use the script to save files within a book to individual PDFs? Not currently, but that would be easy for me to add. At this point, this stuff is still in beta. There's some people that are testing it, and if any of you would like to be testing it, you know, let me know, and we can you can give it a shot. But that type of feature is something that I could easily add. Let's see, Ernest. Yes, running these scripts in an automated way might be getting into a gray area with the EULAs, depending on frame version. That is definitely true, and that's why there's the server version and the desktop version. As long as you are running it, you know, I think, you know, basically I always say, you know, have your lawyer read the EULA, and you get to decide what you can actually do. You know, there's tools like WebWorks and AutoMap. I'm not sure how those get around the EULA. So you know, it's definitely, you need to be aware of you know, your license agreement with Frame. If you're, you know, clicking a batch file and running it, that seems pretty interactive. If you have some other automated script, and if it's running on a server that's not even a desktop system, that's when you probably should be using the server version. But definitely something to keep in mind. All right. Yeah, even running a scheduled batch file is iffy. Yeah, no, I mean, if it's scheduled, if it's not something that you have actually clicked an icon to kick off, then it probably is falling into the very gray area of the license agreement. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. All right, so that just finished, and there's our PDF. And there's our book. So we've got our title page, table of contents, all these links are all live. We've got our chapters, the page and chapter numbering is good. We've got our little note icons. You know, the same stuff we saw, but basically you ran batch file and you got a PDF. Let's see, where's our beautiful, there. That's nice. I love that blue. I don't know. Let's see, so we've got all that, and of course there's an index down here. Nice looking index. Everything's live. Let's see. Go down here. These guys are all live links. The related links are good. So yeah, that's basically FMxAuto in a nutshell. Let's see, Arnis, any plans to have a module that creates EPUB? I'm looking into it. Yeah, that's. I mean, if you have DITA, the DITA for Publishers plugin through the Open Toolkit does a really, really nice job. So that's what I would recommend for DITA. You know, I don't know. I think, you know, EPUB files to be as compatible with a wide variety of readers should be as simple and clean as possible. So they shouldn't have lots of fancy formatting and cool layout. Some people disagree, but that's my take on it. So I think for EPUB, simple is best. So that's pretty much it. Is there anything that isn't clear, or you'd like to see more, you know, up close and personal? I can go through, you know, some of the different files if something you want to see something again. Just let me know. Where was that relationship table? Well, it was in the map. So if we go back in, thanks, Franz. Yeah, I think it's kind of exciting. I'm really looking forward to taking this a little further. So there's a relationship table down here, and there's also one in the submap here, in the commands map. So yeah, these relationship tables can be either place. So yeah, if you know, if anybody wants to look at things, you know, test this on your own, let me know. Lauren, the rel table in the book map does the same thing as the rel table in DITA map. Yep, same thing, exact same structure, same thing. So yeah, if you want to test this on your own, let me know. I'm putting together some packages for people to download, and I look forward to your feedback. And yeah. Yes, no, Arnis, I think the idea is to be able to get nice looking PDFs. I see too many ugly PDFs. And Lauren, yeah, I'll look into that individual chapter thing. All right, well, if anybody has any other questions, I'll sign off, and you know, feel free to email me if you have any questions. And thanks for joining us. All right. Oh, and feel free to join in on our Silicon Valley DITA interest group meetings in the future. We often have them open for remote attendance. All right, take care.